So it was okay for him to lie about the situation.
It was, I think that it was an understandable lie to tell at that point in time, and we needed to have them. Yeah. Do you acknowledge that Trump switched his rhetoric on COVID once it started to infect more states? And deliberately downplayed COVID the entire time that it was affecting primarily blue states?
No, I don't acknowledge that. I think, in fact, a lot of what was going on, for example, let me preface this, I know this isn't good form, but would you admit that Dr. Fauci has no reason to carry water for Trump? He doesn't seem to really care for him, correct?
I don't know.
Okay, well, Fauci, when we had the infamous, Trump talked to, was it Bernstein? Trump talked about how serious COVID was behind the scenes to Bernstein, but publicly he was saying different things. Fauci went on national television and said, actually, the things that Trump is saying publicly were in line with what we were recommending to him. And one of the overall problems, what you're saying, I'm actually going to be more charitable to you than most people would when saying that I still do believe that the buck stops with the president at some level. But the Democrats were saying that Trump should have taken a back seat and it should have been people like Fauci and Birx that were running things. So the question I have, seeing as how Trump's not a virologist or an epidemiologist, if he was going in line with what Fauci and Birx and others like Francis Collins and others were telling him to do, what is really the blame to him? So, for example, we see that right out of the gate, we saw that Fauci came out and said, don't worry about masks. They don't work anyways. You don't need them. Then he came out a month later and said, actually, we lied. We were worried that you were all going to have a rush on masks. We didn't want to panic everyone and cause rushes on, shortages of food and toilet paper and masks, etc. So we intentionally lied to you. Given that was clearly the take from Dr. Fauci, that they were trying to not induce panic, I have a difficult time on this topic specifically, blaming Trump for listening to Fauci and them with a message of optimism, saying, look, we're going to get through this. It's not as bad as it seems. If that's what his team was recommending that he do you think he should have overruled the rule of them and said, I don't care what Fauci and Birx, etc. say. I'm going to go out and say, oh my God, this is really shitty. We're in a lot of trouble.
If you think that he had different information available to him, that what Dr. Fauci was saying was not correct, then I would say, yes, he has a duty to the American people to tell us that and not go in line with what this guy is saying. I think that it would be his duty to expose that and keep the American people safe.
So you would argue that you could never foresee a time where an executive administration should downplay a situation because if they didn't, there would be mass panic or something like that that would make the situation worse.
Are you suggesting that's what he was doing?
I'm suggesting it seems to be that that's in line with what Fauci, etc. had done. That's the exact rationale they gave for why they, according to their words,
Trump.
Right. What I'm saying is he was listening to Fauci and them. We know that Fauci and them already admitted in a previous scenario when it came to the mask that yes, we lied to people because we didn't want to panic them.
So you're saying that Trump did know what was correct, but he decided to say what Dr. Fauci told him instead.
No, I'm saying that Trump probably had some base idea that COVID was a serious situation, which he never denied that it was serious. He didn't really deny that it was serious. But I think that he was like listening to people like Fauci and them that were saying, here's how you approach it. A message of optimism. You don't want to freak people out. And he said, okay. Did he know? That what he was saying was a blatant lie? No, I don't think he knew that. I think that he had reason to believe there was optimism because of the people around him. For example, he was accused of lying over and over again, saying the vaccine's on its way, it's going to be here. And almost every expert and talking head from the Democratic Party was going on television saying, it's impossible. It can't be here in that time frame. Trump is rushing it. It will be dangerous. He can't say things like that. And then it turned out he was correct, and they immediately went from, I wouldn't trust it, it's dangerous, to, not only do we trust it and it's the best thing ever, but you should all be forced to take it.
Okay, so you're saying he never made it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal. He repeatedly said that it was just going to vanish. Countless times he said it's just going to disappear, it's just going to vanish.
And?
At the beginning of the pandemic. You don't think that's him not taking it serious?
What month?
You just said you don't think that he
What month did he say that?
It wasn't serious.
What month did he say
that? He said it in October before he got here, and then throughout several months of the pandemic, he repeated this rhetoric.
Okay, like what other month other than October before it got here?
There's a quote of him. He repeated it like 5 times in February. He repeated it
Drazi,
in March.
The question is whether or not that's actually downplaying it based
April.
on when he's. I think I'm muted.
No, I heard you.
His question is, his question is like,
April,
is it downplaying based on when he said it? So is the information that we have at the time actually enough for him to know that he is saying something that is downplaying.
Okay, so I'll answer this in two ways.
Yeah,
I'll answer this
going
in
through all the months. July.
Okay, I'll answer this in two ways.
Several
right?
times.
I'll answer
August.
this. I'll answer this in two ways, right? One, yes, when he was saying things in October, February, etc., remember the person that he's supposed to be listening to, Dr. Fauci, was saying it's no big deal. Actually, the flu will be worse. But you say that he said, and I'm quoting now, several times in August, this is nothing to worry about. It will just vanish on its own. Can you show me those quotes?
Yeah, I have a whole list of them.
Sure. I'd like to see the ones in August.
I'm also talking October 2020.
Right. I'd like to see the ones in August where he said, don't worry, it'll vanish on its own.
I'm sending it to you.
Okay.
Also, past that, he said it's going to run its course and just vanish.
Yeah.
Beyond August.
Okay. He's
it's
saying,
not,
so
I
here's
don't have
saying, so
Logan
I'll read some of these.
feed, I just have,
What I'll do is, from your CNN article you said, I'll read some of them. Now, granted, it doesn't have the full context. It's just one sentence. And we do know that sometimes the context around things could change. But this is the information we have around. So I'll read the specific quotes, some of these, as opposed to just saying, yeah, he said this all the time. So here's things he said. I don't think people are panicking. This is in March 6, 2020. I don't think people are panicking. I said last night, we did an interview on Fox, a town hall. I think it was very good. And I said, calm down. You have to be calm. It'll go away. That was in March. Let's go a little further. Let's see. April 3rd, he says, it's going to go away. It'll go away. Let's see here. You said, let's skip to a little later. You said July. And I think we're going to be very good with the coronavirus. I think that at some point it's just going to... Okay, July 1st, 2020. I think at some point we're going to be very good with the coronavirus. I think that at some point it's just going to sort of disappear. I hope. July 22nd. We're going to beat it. Yeah, we're going to beat it. And with time, you're going to beat it. It's going to be okay. You know, I say it's going to disappear. And I say, and they say, that's terrible. He said, well, it's true. I mean, it's going to disappear. Before it disappears, I think we could knock it out before it disappears. And frankly, this is August 13th, 2020. Frankly, you know, we've had a tremendous market. You know, I've talked about that, the stock market. Think of it. We're almost back to where we were. And still in the pandemic, which is going to go away. And I'll say it'll be going away. And they'll scream, how can you say that? I said it because it's going to be going away. Sounds to me like what he's saying is eventually we'll get through this. It will go away. This is in line with science that talked about how things like natural immunity would actually mean that we would have protection from this at some point once we got sort of a herd immunity. So I don't think he's saying anything as nefarious as you seem to be implying here. The idea that this was downplaying, what's the alternative? Was he telling people to go hug a Chinaman? Was he saying that it would be xenophobic to stop travel from places where the virus was, like China? No. It seems that I can't hear you. I believe you're muted. Okay, that's cool. We can do the rest of the debate like this.
Oh yeah. My dog was barking, so I muted it out of courtesy. I think the alternative would be to discuss the reality of the situation that we were facing.
Okay, yeah. The reality of the situation, which was what? That there was mass-induced panic that the panic was so bad that we did things like force COVID patients into nursing homes that led to tens of thousands of deaths. That would have been a better alternative.
Yeah, Rob. I think that's a good. You know, I'm suggesting that he say.
Okay, will you acknowledge that there were many people, particularly in blue states, that were so panicked by COVID and overselling it that they, as a rationale for that, forced COVID patients into nursing homes?
I can't tell you exactly why they did what they did, but I can say that when they can see the reality isn't matching up with what the highest level of government was telling them, by repeating rhetoric like everything's fine, it's going to go away, everything's completely under control. When you're saying this kind of rhetoric over and over again, I think that people aren't going to be able to trust the highest levels of government to inform them, and that's going to raise not just suspicion, but yeah, it's going to induce a lot more panic because they can't trust what should have been the most reliable source on what is probably the biggest global event that we'll see in our lives.
Okay, so first off, I would say that
itself to a lot of panic.
I would say that actually goes the exact opposite way as well. For example, one of the things that Democrats supported is Dr. Fauci. Do you support Dr. Fauci? Did you support him, by the way?
I don't think he's done anything that was particularly egregious.
Well, you are aware that he initially lied about the efficacy of masks, admitted that he lied because he said that he was afraid people would panic and go mass by mass, or mass buy masks, which meant that medical professionals wouldn't have them. You acknowledge he did that, correct?
Yeah, and he was right.
So it was okay for him to lie about the situation.
It was, I think that it was an understandable lie to tell at that point in time, and we needed to have them. Yeah. Can you explain to me what the benefit of what Trump was saying was?
So what I'll do is I'll get to explaining the benefit.
And then the same way that Fauci had the benefit of the mask thing.
So I'll get to that, but I'll stay.
Hospitals across the United States.
I'll get to that, but I'll stay on the point that we're on. So initially at this, you heard Elder Drazi say, no, at no point should someone tell the noble lie. You always have to tell the truth. That's something that needs to happen.
I didn't say that.
Yes, you did. That's what you implied earlier. That's what you said going back. I said, can you envision a situation where
I was talking about Donald Trump.
Oh, so just with Trump. With Trump, he always has to tell the truth, and he can't tell the noble lie to stop people from panicking. But Dr. Fauci, it's okay for him to do it.
If you want to give me an example where Trump told a lie based on a fear that ended up coming true, that thing coming true made the situation worse for everybody, sure. I think what Dr. Fauci did was the correct approach because he was correct. The result was what he had predicted that it would have been if he had made that announcement. If you think that Donald Trump had lied in the same manner,
let's start. I promise we'll get back to Trump.
I'm talking about Trump because he's the president.
We'll get to Trump in a second. Let's talk about this noble lie that you support from Fauci again here in a second. Do you believe that do you believe cloth masks are effective?
No.
Do you think Fauci said that?
I don't know.
So you were against masks.
There was a lot of changing rhetoric.
So you admit mask mandates were bullshit because cloth masks aren't effective.
I think that using a cloth mask to abide by a mask mandate is ridiculous.
Okay, what type of mask should we abide by? Only N95 ones?
Yeah, that's the only ones I've ever used.
Okay, so just to be clear, you're aware that none of the mask mandates said that you had to wear an N95 mask. And probably 90 to 95% of people were wearing masks that weren't N95 masks, which you're admitting weren't working.
Yeah, sure. I think that could have been handled better.
Okay, and you admit that Dr. Fauci said those masks were effective. Maybe not as effective as N95, but they were still worth wearing?
I believe he said that when that was the understanding.
So he was wrong at the time?
Yeah.
Okay, do you believe...
I'm okay with people being wrong.
Okay, fair enough. That's perfectly fine. Do you believe when he came out and said, never mind, we lied to you because we didn't want you to mass panic and buy masks, do you believe at that point he thought cloth masks were effective?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? That's what he was saying.
Oh, if he said it, then sure.
Okay, then my question to you...
You had presented to me.
Sure, then my question to you is... My question to you would be, if he was telling the noble lie, why didn't he do this? Hey, everyone, don't panic and go rush and buy N95 masks, which are the only good masks. Actually, the paper masks and the cloth masks are effective as well. So do you have one of these at home, a shirt? If you have an extra one, why don't you just cut it, tie it around your face, and that'll give you prevention? Why didn't he say that? Why instead did he intentionally lie and in his belief, in his own words, tell people not to do something that would significantly protect them from COVID? And you think that was a good thing? That he lied and jeopardized people when he could have gave them an alternative in his mind that would have been successful?
No, I think that he did what he thought was the best thing.
I disagree. If he thought cloth...
that people can make mistakes and that's fine.
No, it wasn't a mistake. If he thought at the time he made that statement that cloth masks were effective and he knew that anyone could make a cloth mask with even an article of clothing, why wouldn't he have told them that? That would have still stopped the panic buying of N95 masks. So why did he do something in his own words?
I'm not here to tell you why Anthony Fauci did anything that he did.
That's absolutely right.
I can go based on you can go based on data whether or not it seems like he was acting maliciously. I don't think that he was acting maliciously.
Well, the data, how does the data prove if he was acting maliciously or not? What sort of data? Give me the data.
I don't think there is any that suggests he was acting.
Well, what would that data look like?
Let's say we had white papers that showed that cloth masks were wholly ineffective, and then he said you should wear cloth masks, they're effective.
Okay, so the point I'm making is we don't need that data point because he said publicly that cloth masks were effective. He said that all forms, of course he said N95 were superior and that you should get that if you could, but he said that all these other forms of masks were better than nothing. It seems evident that he truly believed that. My question to you is, if he's lying to prevent people from buying N95 masks, why can't we say that clearly he was intentionally jeopardizing people in his own mind, but said it was worth it for the greater good, but he knew that he could have told a different lie that would have been far safer for those people, which was make your own cloth mask, which he didn't do.
Okay. You're asking me to specifically know exactly what he was thinking. He said, I don't know that. And I don't need to know that, make the case that I'm making. Which is that I do think that he was acting in the best public health interest.
The topic that you've settled on is asking me to know exactly what Trump was thinking when he said things. The reason I bring up Dr. Fauci in this context is you initially said, when I was like, look, I don't agree with everything Trump said. Allow me to finish. There's a delay, so you have to allow me to finish. Right? The reason that this came up in the first place was I made a point that clearly there's a bunch of things that Trump handled this that I vehemently disagree with, which I admitted at the outset. And I said I don't agree with all of his rhetoric. However, I do understand that basically most of what he was saying, Dr. Fauci said, was in line with what they were saying because they didn't want him to induce panic. And you said, no. He has to tell the truth no matter what, even if it induces panic. And then you immediately, when it comes to like, okay, but Fauci lied in an attempt to not induce panic, you're like, yeah, he did the right thing. And so it seems clear that you have a double standard on this. That's why we're bringing it up.